What's up guys, welcome back to Investing with Kai. In my last video, a lot of you mentioned in the comments that you'd be interested in watching a video dedicated to just tracking your expenses and budgeting. So here we are. Today I'm going to be talking about tracking your expenses and budgeting, and by the end of the video we'll have gone over all the tools and methods that I use to keep track of my monthly, annual, and even far out in the future spendings. Now before we begin, I want to give you my quick 2 cents on budgeting because I want to make this as enjoyable as possible for you. Drum roll, please! I shoot these videos alone, right? So before I started budgeting, I actually saw budgeting as the enemy of fun. Because a lot of times I wanted to spend money on things that made me happy, such as eating out or going to the movies, buying video games, and restricting that made me feel like I was restricting my fun, essentially. I was always constraining myself in the name of saving money, which resulted in me not doing the things I always wanted to do. Surprisingly, after budgeting, I actually started spending more money in some cases. The reason for that is because budgeting is supposed to make you aware of your spendings and your necessities. No more, no less. So in a lot of cases, we might end up realizing that we're spending more money than we actually want to, or more money than we actually can afford. In those cases, we end up spending less. But for me, I was always feeling guilty about spending. So whenever I went out and ate out 3 times a week, I would feel guilty. And whenever I bought video games 3 times a week, I would also feel guilty. Budgeting made me realize how much exactly I could afford to spend. So when I spent it, I spent the money guilt-free. Budgeting gave me, and hopefully us after this video, a sense of awareness and control over money. There was no more guessing game and no more surprises. With that said and out of the way, let's get right into it. So the first thing we want to do is track our expenses. We want to track our expenses so we have a rough idea of how much we're spending per month so that we can start budgeting for it. Now, while you can go and manually track all your receipts and credit card transactions, I personally love to use Mint. With Mint, you can link all of your bank accounts and credit cards, and it'll aggregate all your transactions into one app. It even tries to categorize all of your transactions for you, albeit sometimes poorly, but you can always go and manually fix those. As a bonus, because Mint keeps track of all of your transactions, it's really useful in detecting suspicious credit card transactions in case someone were to steal your credit card information. So when starting out, you'll probably need to go through a lot of these transactions and just kind of fix it up to be what you would consider them to be. For example, Blue Land, which is a soap and cleaning product company, it's categorized as gift. But for me, it was actually home supplies. So the thing you want to do first is go to trends, and for sake of simplicity, I'm just going to only check off my credit cards. Now, if this is your first time using Mint, I'm not sure if you're able to see transactional history past the current month. So you might only have access to the current month of data, and you can use that, but just know that it might not be an accurate representation of what your monthly spending is just because of the current pandemic. So for me, I'm gonna go and show the last 6 months of spending instead. So this gives me a little bit more of an accurate representation of what I'm spending per month on my credit card, obviously divided by 6. You also want to go to each category and look at the transactions. Sometimes there will be transactions that you don't want in your budget because it's not something that you paid for. Maybe your friend paid you back after you paid for something. For me, Next Travel was actually a company work trip, so my company paid for that. I just had to pay for it first and then file an expense report. So I can go and click on travel and switch it to hide from budgets and trends. So after you've done that, you'll be able to see a lot of your transactions down here as what your spending categories are. This is just an example. Yours will look different, everyone's will look different. But now you'll have a sense of what you're spending on, and we can start budgeting from here. So after you're done tracking your expenses, you want to have something that kind of looks like this, where you split up the necessities from the discretionaries. You'll have something maybe like rent, $900, utilities, $125, debt payments, groceries, shopping essentials for your shampoo or deodorant, and then your discretionary, such as maybe traveling or eating out or shopping. Whoa! Do you guys see that? Someone hacked my Google Doc and told you guys to smash that like button if you haven't already. Jeez, what a crazy hacker. Thanks for the plug though. Anyways, what were we saying? Right. And I want to put credit card debt separately because I think it's really important to pay back credit card debt. Usually the debt will run you about 15 to 25% interest annually, so you're losing a lot of money if you're not paying down that fast. So now that you have all of your monthly spendings categorized, it's time for my favorite part, budgeting. And for budgeting, we're going to use YNAB, which stands for You Need a Budget. I will say that YNAB is pretty pricey with a price tag of $84 a year. However, my opinion is that because it helps you relieve so much stress, and it'll likely even save you more than $84 in the year, that I think it's actually really worth it. If you're skeptical, they do have a 34-day free trial, so I think you should definitely still try it. So immediately when you join, whoa, what's that? Did someone hack my YNAB too? It says subscribe and hit the notification bell. Man, these hackers are just adding subliminal messaging everywhere. Anyways, when you first join YNAB, you'll see that they already kind of categorize some of your immediate obligations, and this I'm gonna call must pay. To simplify things, I'm gonna start getting rid of some of these categories as well. Essentially what you want to have is just a representation of what you found in your monthly expenses. So here we have the must pays or the non-discretionaries, and these are the things you have to pay every month. You need to pay for rent, you need to pay for utilities, you need to pay for your student loan payments, your groceries because you need to eat, and essential shopping like things like deodorant, shampoo, toothpaste, toilet paper. And then you want to split out discretionaries. So you would have shopping and dining out. And by shopping, I mean things that are like new shoes, new clothes that you don't necessarily need. And then dining out, such as eating out at a restaurant or, you guys know what dining out is. So this is kind of a very extremely ideal situation. Obviously, everyone's budget might look different. They'll have various categories that you might not have. So for example, I might have something like entertainment, if you like to separate things like going to the movies or going to the arcade. But to keep things simple for the sake of this video, I'm going to keep the number of categories to as low as possible. So after you're done with that, you want to link your accounts. So I'm just going to link a checking account called Money. And let's just say you have $3,000 saved up. And you also likely have a credit card, so I'm gonna link a credit card as well. Let's also pretend that we're slightly in debt just to make this a little bit more realistic, because a lot of us are in some form of credit card debt. You can say that you want to create a goal to pay off the balance over time. And for the sake of this budget, I'm gonna assume I make around 48K. So I think a reasonable goal target would be maybe paying off this debt by next January. Great. So if you go back to budget, YNAB will automatically add a credit card for you. And it's telling you that you need to essentially budget an extra $222.23 to reach this goal of yours. It essentially just takes your credit card debt and divide it by the number of months you set out that you want to pay your credit card in. So what you noticed here was that it took the $223 or $222 from your $3,000 because your $3,000 is the amount you have saved, which is the amount of free liquid cash you have to move around. And it took it and allocated it to your credit card payment. So now you can see how YNAB is kind of making you take your resources and applying it to your necessities as well as your goals. So we're gonna continue and just kind of apply this logic, and we're gonna take from the rest of this money to be budgeted and apply it to our, essentially our must pays and our discretionaries. 900. 125. Student loans average at 393, and you also want to pay the credit card minimum, so that would be plus 20. Groceries 200 for a person per month, and then essential shoppings, I'll say that's around 50 a month for your shampoo and your toilet paper, paper towels, etc. So this must pay is the amount that you need to pay. Like if you were just living on nothing, like didn't go out, like had no fun, just went to work and went home, this is the amount of money you need to pay per month. So you always want to prioritize this first. And then now you also want to budget for your discretionaries. I'm going to ignore travel for now because it makes the budget a little bit more complicated than it needs to be to demonstrate my point. So now you have $689 that isn't allocated to anything. The rest of your money is now tied up to a purpose for this month. So this is how people stop living paycheck to paycheck. Because usually if you have the paycheck come in the same month that money is due and that you need to use the money, you end up having to line up your bill dates with your paycheck, and that's super stressful. The ultimate goal is that you want to start building towards the next month. So you want to start allocating the $689 to next month's budget. So first you probably want to prioritize rent. So let's just add $689.77. And you come to realize that you have $0 left in your budget. So this is zero resources. You allocated all your money. So this is where you now have control over how much you're spending and how much money you need. You have everything out in front of you. You see that to keep up your current lifestyle, you need to allocate $200 to shopping and dining out. And you might want to spend that money elsewhere, such as preparing for next month's bills. So if you're looking at this and you're like, wow, I'm spending too much on shopping and dining out, you might want to reduce shopping and dining out to $100 each, and then instead allocate that to next month's rent. So you can just do plus 200. Or if you feel like you want to live a little bit more, you can instead take the money from next month's rent, not plan ahead, and then kind of allocate it more to dining out this month, because maybe you have a special occasion, you want to celebrate your birthday, and that's fine. But you're making the active decision to take from next month. The whole point of budgeting is just to have control over when you're spending and how you're spending. Now, there's one thing that I haven't talked about, and that's true expenses. Imagine you want to buy a car in 2 years and the down payment costs $5,000. I'm gonna just subtract this away and just leave it at 100 for dining out. So I'm gonna make a new category called future goals. And for one of my future goals, I want a new car. Let me just specify that it's a down payment. And we're gonna create a goal for this that is a target balance, because you want to have that much in your account by a certain date. And I said 2 years, so it would be 2022, and you want $5,000. So now you know that you need to budget $192.32 every month for that goal. So there's no surprises when 2 years come and you can't afford your car. You plan for it way in advance. You know exactly how much it costs you out of your budget. So I allocate $192.31. And now I have $697.46 left. So on the topic of true expenses, you also want to do this for all of your other true expenses, such as like maybe annual eye appointments or annual doctor's appointments. So I'm going to add more categories such as a subscription. Let's pretend that we subscribe to YNAB. And every year the subscription costs $84. So we want $84 by next year around this time. So each month we need to budget $6 to make that happen. And then what if you had something like contacts renewal? Cannot spell. And this is coming up in maybe October, and it costs you roughly $200 for the eye exam as well as the contacts. So every month you would have to budget $33.34 so that you wouldn't be surprised by that amount when October comes around. So this is the whole idea about true expenses. You want to take all of your mid to long-term expenses as well as goals such as buying a house or buying a car, and then divvy that up into monthly payments so that you're always paying into that goal or expense. So when the time comes, you're not like, oh my god, I need to spend $5,000, because you already allocated that money way ahead of time for that purpose. You can just spend it because you already know that you accounted for all your other plans and that this $5,000 was dedicated to do just that. The last thing I want to go over is, what do you do when you get a paycheck? You want to go into your money and add a transaction. Let's say I get paid once a month on the 15th of May. And Let me call that paycheck. It needs to go into the inflow to be budgeted because it's cash flow in that I need to budget still. And I make, again, $48,000 a year. So that's roughly after tax. I'm gonna say it takes 25% away. So every month I make roughly around $3,000. So now you have an extra $3,658 to budget, and you know exactly how much you have that hasn't been allocated to a purpose, whether it's a essential need or a discretionary need. So you're free to do whatever you want. If you want to prioritize paying off next month's bills, then you can allocate that to next month. You can do something like budget the same this month as last month. And after you've done that, there's still around $1,300 that you still have left. And let's say you want to start building your emergency fund, which I recommend you do first. I know I didn't mention that in this video, but I think it's very important that we're ready for a rainy day, something that this pandemic has taught us. So let's say I want another goal, and let's just add that as a emergency fund. And let's say I want to build this up by next January. I think that's a reasonable time. This should be 3 times your monthly expenses, so your 3-month emergency fund should be 3 times this amount, which is roughly $7,000. So let's just set that as our goal. 7,000 target balance by January 2021. So to reach that for each month, you need to budget $777.78. So let's do that. So now we're on track for all our goals. We've accounted for all our goals for this month. For some of us, we might even want to go to the following month, but that's up to personal preference, and that's not the point of budgeting. I think the point of budgeting is to just give you the control that I'm demonstrating to you over your money, that you know where every dollar is going and you're not spending more than you should because it would hurt your goals or your mandatory payments. So say I went out and ate with my friends and I spent $40 that night. What you would do is that you go to your credit card and then add a transaction. You went to Food McFood. This goes under discretionary dining out, and you spent $40. You can go back to your budget and you'll see that immediately it took $40 from your dining out budget, so you only have $60 left to dine out. Now, if for example, for this month, you just kept eating out and you went over your budget. So if for example, you wanna go out and eat with your friends and they say, hey, this meal is gonna cost $80, and you see that you only have $60 left in dining out. Well, the point of budgeting is to choose between your categories and kind of prioritize what their value is to you. So if for this month you're like, okay, I don't need to shop this month, you can actually transfer $20 to dining out so that you can go eat. And now you have $80 for that night, and you know that you have $80 dedicated for that purpose, and you shouldn't feel guilty because you made the conscious decision to take from your shopping budget and move it to your dining out budget. So I'm gonna add that transaction now. And if you look at your budget, you now have $0 for eating out. I just wanna go over one more scenario. Sorry, I keep saying that. Imagine that now you want to buy something for your birthday and it costs $100. So obviously you can potentially take it from your goals, and this is the kind of active decision making that gives you control when you budget. You're not gonna accidentally spend the $100 and be like, oh my god, like I can't afford my contacts renewal, or I have to acquire more credit card debt to pay for something, because you're looking at everything you need to pay for and you're making active decisions here. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and got something out of it. Definitely leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought of the video so I know whether to keep making this kind of content or where I can improve. Again, this was a follow-up to my 6 money tips video, where one of the things I mentioned as a tip was to start tracking your expenses and budgeting. And if you haven't watched that video yet, you can find it right here. Till next time.